My name is Rebecca Lane. I'm 32 years old, and at my younger sister's engagement party, my mother pulled me behind a marble column in the lobby of the hotel where I worked and whispered, "Please don't tell anyone you still work here. We don't want people asking about what happened." For a moment, I thought I had heard her wrong. Not because my mother had never been ashamed of me before. She had, quietly, politely, with the kind of smile that made outsiders think she was being gentle. But that night, the lie was bigger than usual. What happened in my family meant the story my sister Emily had been telling for 2 years, that I had been fired from the Alderbrook Grand Hotel for stealing, that I had been lucky the hotel did not press charges, that I was allowed back inside only because the general manager felt sorry for me. None of that was true. I was not fired. I did not steal. I was not lucky to be inside that hotel. I was the person who had approved the entire event schedule, corrected the catering contract, fixed the unpaid deposit problem, and personally saved my sister's engagement party from being canceled 2 days earlier. But my family did not know that, or maybe they knew enough not to ask. My mother adjusted her pearl necklace and glanced toward the ballroom doors. Inside, 200 guests were drinking champagne under crystal chandeliers. My sister Emily stood in the center of it all, wearing a white satin dress and smiling like every light in the room had been rented to flatter her. Her fiancé, Daniel, was beside her, looking nervous but happy. My father was bragging to someone from Daniel's family about how proud he was that Emily was marrying into a world-class family. And I stood in the lobby wearing a navy dress and a name badge hidden inside my purse because my mother had begged me not to embarrass them by being too connected to the staff. I said, "Mom, I do still work here." She winced. "Lower your voice." "Why?" "Because tonight is about Emily." There it was, the family commandment. Tonight is about Emily. Birthdays were about Emily. Graduations were about Emily. Holidays became about Emily if she cried at the right time. Even my own achievements somehow became about whether they made Emily feel uncomfortable. I looked at my mother and said, "You told people I was fired." Her lips tightened. "I told people there was an incident." "You told Aunt Marjorie I stole from the hotel." "I said there were questions about money." "That is not the same thing." She touched my arm. "Rebecca, please, don't start. Just smile tonight." Before I could answer, the ballroom doors opened and Emily appeared, holding a glass of champagne. "There you are," she said, too brightly. She looked from my face to Mom's hand on my arm. "Everything okay?" Mom smiled like nothing had happened. "Of course." Emily stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Becca, please don't do that thing where you make tonight heavy." I stared at her. "What thing?" She smiled, but her eyes sharpened. "You know, the victim thing." Behind her, guests were laughing. Music was playing. A photographer was taking pictures of the dessert table. Then Emily glanced at my dress and said, "Also, maybe stay away from Daniel's parents until after the toast. They're very traditional." "Traditional means what?" She shrugged. "They don't love drama." I almost laughed. "I'm the drama?" Emily's smile flickered. "Rebecca, the hotel only kept you around because you know where everything is. Don't mistake that for respect." That line landed exactly as she intended. Quiet, sharp, private enough to deny later. Then she turned and walked back into the ballroom. I stood there with my mother beside me, feeling the old version of myself rise up, the version who swallowed things, the version who let Emily's lies become weather, the version who cleaned up messes and then stood outside the photo frame. But before I could decide whether to leave, the main elevator opened. Mr. Alden, the general manager of the Alderbrook Grand, stepped into the lobby with a black folder in his hand. He looked past my mother, past the ballroom, and directly at me. "Rebecca," he said, loud enough for several guests to turn. "Good. I'm glad you're here. The regional director is ready to finalize your promotion announcement, and we still need your signature on the revised contract for tonight's event." My mother's hand dropped from my arm. Emily stopped in the ballroom doorway. The photographer lowered his camera, and Mr. Alden added, "Also, the Keller family's final balance was only approved because of your authorization, so I need you before anyone else." That was the moment my sister's perfect party began to crack. Before I explain why my sister looked terrified when my boss said my name, you need to understand how my family worked. Emily was not evil when we were children. That would have made life simpler. She was sweet when she wanted to be, funny when nobody was watching, and soft in the way people rushed to protect. She was 3 years younger than me, with blonde curls, blue eyes, and a talent for turning mistakes into emergencies other people had to solve. When Emily forgot homework, my mother drove it to school. When I forgot homework, I learned responsibility. When Emily cried because she did not make cheer squad, Dad took us all for ice cream. When I cried because I worked all weekend and missed a friend's birthday, Mom said, "Rebecca, everyone makes sacrifices." I was the steady daughter. Emily was the special one. At least, that was how my parents explained it. "You're stronger than she is," Mom would say. "You don't need as much reassurance." I did not know then that stronger often means people have decided you can survive neglect. My father owned a small insurance office. My mother taught piano lessons from home and cared deeply about appearances. We were not rich, but we were respectable, which in my mother's mind mattered more than being kind. She liked Christmas cards with matching sweaters, church potlucks, and telling people both her daughters were doing wonderfully. The problem was, I did not fit the version of wonderful she preferred. I did not marry young. I did not become a teacher, nurse, or something easy to explain. I started working at the Alderbrook Grand Hotel when I was 19 as a front desk assistant because I needed money for community college. The Alderbrook was the nicest hotel in our city. Marble lobby, brass elevators, high ceilings, old money weddings, business conferences, charity galas, and guests who believed expensive rooms made them important. I loved it instantly. Not the wealthy guests exactly, the system, the movement, the way one building could become 1,000 stories in one night if everyone did their job well. I learned fast. Check-ins, guest complaints, room blocks, event timelines, vendor coordination, billing corrections, lost luggage, angry brides, drunk uncles, CEOs who expected miracles. I was good at making chaos look calm. By 24, I was front desk supervisor. By 27, I moved into guest relations. By 29, I was operations manager for events and front office coordination. My family still told people I worked at a hotel desk. Emily, meanwhile, floated. She tried interior design school, then quit because the instructors were jealous. She worked for a boutique, then left because the manager was toxic. She launched a lifestyle page online, then said the algorithm was against her. Every failure became proof that the world was unfair to Emily. My parents believed her, because believing her meant they did not have to admit she often caused her own problems. I still helped her. I helped with resumes. I paid her phone bill twice. I got her a seasonal hostess job at the Alderbrook one December, thinking maybe structure would help. That was my first real mistake. Emily loved the hotel, but not the work. She loved the lobby flowers, the champagne welcome trays, the polite attention from men in suits. She hated being scheduled, corrected, or expected to do tasks nobody applauded. She lasted 3 weeks before quitting. After that, she still came by sometimes, saying she wanted to see me, but usually she wanted discounts, a table at the restaurant, a spa appointment, a room rate for a friend. "It's just a perk," she would say. "You act like you own the place." I would tell her no when I could. Sometimes I said yes because saying no to Emily was never only saying no to Emily. It became a family meeting, a phone call from Mom, a lecture from Dad, a sigh about how I never wanted my sister to have anything. For years, I thought my family misunderstood me. Now I know misunderstanding can be convenient. They understood enough to use my access. They just did not respect the person who earned it. The rumor that I was fired for stealing began 2 years before Emily's engagement party. It started with a charity luncheon at the Alderbrook, hosted by a women's foundation my mother admired. Emily wanted to attend because several wealthy young professionals would be there, including Daniel Keller, whose family owned a chain of real estate offices and liked being photographed near donations. Emily asked me to get her a discounted ticket. I said I could not. The event was sold out. She cried to Mom. Mom called me and said, "Rebecca, your sister is trying to build a better life. Why do you make everything hard?" I spoke to the event coordinator and found one cancellation seat. I paid half the ticket myself because Emily said she would pay me back after payday. She never did. At the luncheon, Emily looked perfect. Cream dress, soft curls, borrowed pearl earrings, a smile that made older women call her charming. I was working that day, moving between the front desk and the ballroom because 2 staff members had called out. I saw Emily talking to Daniel near the silent auction table. I saw her touch his arm when she laughed. I saw her become exactly the person she needed to be in that room. What I did not see until later was the billing issue. After the luncheon, 3 spa vouchers, 2 restaurant gift cards, and 1 weekend suite certificate were missing from the auction inventory. At first, everyone assumed a volunteer had miscounted. Then the certificates were redeemed over the next month under different names, all connected to Emily's friends. One redemption used a staff access code, my staff access code. When Mr. Alden called me into his office, he did not accuse me. That was important. He closed the door, placed the records in front of me, and said, "Rebecca, I need you to look carefully before you answer." I looked. My stomach dropped. The code had been used from a terminal near the small event office during the luncheon. The same office where I had left my tablet for 10 minutes while taking a guest complaint. Emily knew my passcode. She had watched me type it before. My first thought was not anger, it was dread, because I knew exactly what would happen if I said her name. My family would not ask why she did it. They would ask why I was trying to ruin her. Mr. Alden watched my face and understood more than I wanted him to. "Do you know who used your code?" he asked. I said, "I think so." "Family?" I nodded. He sighed, not disappointed, tired in the way good managers get tired when personal problems walk into professional buildings. The hotel opened an internal review. Standard procedure required my access to be temporarily restricted while they traced transactions. I was moved off guest-facing front desk duties for 3 weeks. Nobody outside management was told details. But Emily saw me in the back office one afternoon and asked why I was not at the desk. I said there was an audit. Her face changed. Just enough. A week later, Mom called me crying. "Emily says you're under investigation." I said, "There is an audit." "For stealing?" "No." Then why would she say that? There was the trap. Why would Emily say that unless it was true? I told Mom I could not discuss hotel records. That was also true. Mr. Alden had warned me to keep the matter confidential while they handled it. Mom took my silence as guilt. Dad called and said, "If you did something desperate, we can help, but lying makes it worse." I almost told him everything, but the hotel had already contacted Emily quietly. She denied it, then cried, then claimed a friend used the code without her understanding. The missing certificates were repaid by someone. I later learned Daniel helped cover part of it because he had just started dating her and wanted the whole thing to disappear. The hotel did not press charges because the loss was recovered and because Mr. Alden believed I had reported the pattern as soon as I confirmed it. Emily was banned from employee discounts and internal invited unless officially invited. My family never heard that part. What they heard was Emily's version. Rebecca got caught. Rebecca was moved to the back. Rebecca was lucky. And because I refused to drag confidential records into my mother's living room, they decided my silence was shame. After the audit, something unexpected happened. Mr. Alden promoted me. Not publicly at first, quietly. He said anyone could manage smooth days, but people who stayed calm when the system was under threat were rare. I became operations manager for internal controls and event coordination. It was not glamorous. It meant contracts, deposits, access logs, staff training, billing reviews, vendor accountability, and preventing exactly the kind of mess Emily had created. I loved it. The work was precise. It rewarded memory, pattern, patience. Things my family had always treated like personality flaws became professional strengths. At the hotel, people trusted me. Staff came to me before a problem became a disaster. Brides called me when their planners panicked. Corporate clients asked if Rebecca was handling their account. Mr. Alden began including me in executive meetings. 6 months before Emily's engagement party, he told me the regional office was creating a new position, Director of Event Operations for 3 properties. He wanted me to apply. Not apply, he corrected himself. Prepare. The job is yours if you want it. I wanted it so badly, I went home and cried in my car before unlocking my apartment. Then I told my family. That was my second mistake. I did not give details. I just said the hotel might promote me to a regional role. My father smiled politely and said, "That's good, Becca." My mother asked if it meant better health insurance. Emily said, "So you're still at the hotel?" I said yes. She tilted her head. Interesting. That was all. Later, I learned she told Aunt Marjorie the hotel probably kept me because I knew too much. By then, I had stopped correcting every lie. Not because it did not hurt, because every correction became a new trial. If I said I was promoted, they asked why nobody announced it. If I said I had not stolen, they asked why Emily would lie. If I said the hotel trusted me, they said trustworthy people did not end up in audits. So I built my life where my work could speak. Then Emily got engaged. Daniel proposed at a vineyard. The photos were beautiful. Emily called me screaming, and for one moment, I let myself be happy for her. Daniel seemed decent, a little cautious around my family maybe, but kind. He sent me a message after the engagement saying, "I know things have been awkward, but Emily says you know events better than anyone. Would you be willing to recommend venues?" I stared at that message for a long time. Emily had told him I was useful, not innocent, not respected, useful. I replied professionally. I gave him 3 options, including the Alderbrook, because, despite everything, it was the best venue in town. Daniel's parents loved the idea immediately. The Keller family liked impressive rooms. The Alderbrook had impressive rooms. Emily loved it for another reason. She wanted the same ballroom where the charity luncheon had happened, but this time as the bride-to-be. I should have stepped away. I should have said, conflict of interest. I should have let another manager handle it. But Mr. Alden said, only if you're comfortable. The account is high profile and, frankly, nobody knows the family dynamics better than you. That was diplomatic. What he meant was, nobody else would spot the landmines before they exploded. I agreed to oversee the contract, but I asked that my name stay out of family conversations. I told myself I was protecting professionalism. Maybe I was also protecting the last part of me that still wanted my family to enjoy one event without turning me into the problem. The contract was signed under Daniel's family name. Then the first deposit bounced. The bounced deposit did not mean Daniel's family was broke. Wealthy people have messy money too. But it did mean the perfect image Emily had been selling was not as clean as she thought. Daniel's father, Howard Keller, called the hotel personally and blamed a transfer error. Then a second payment arrived short. Then Emily requested upgraded flowers, premium champagne, and a dessert display that was not in the package. Every time billing pushed back, she told the coordinator, "Rebecca said it was fine." I had said no such thing. By then, Mr. Alden had started copying me on everything. The event was turning into exactly the kind of controlled disaster I was paid to prevent. I called Daniel privately. "I need to ask a direct question," I said. "Does Emily know the payment schedule is behind?" He was silent too long. "She knows there have been delays." "Daniel," he sighed, "she thinks my parents are handling everything." "Are they?" "They will." That answer worried me. People who say they will instead of they did are standing on hope, not paper. I told him the hotel would cancel the premium editions if payment was not corrected. He sounded embarrassed. "Rebecca, I'm sorry." "You don't have to apologize to me, but you need to be honest with Emily." He gave a sad laugh. "Your sister does not enjoy financial honesty." I almost said, "Nobody taught her to." Instead, I said, "The hotel cannot carry the event because the room looks pretty." 2 days before the engagement party, Howard Keller came to the hotel demanding to speak to management. I met him in the conference office. He looked me up and down and said, "You're Emily's sister, correct?" "I'm also the operations manager assigned to this event." His smile was thin. "Then I'm sure you understand family sensitivity." I did. Too well. He wanted the hotel to keep all premium upgrades, delay final billing, and avoid embarrassing his family. In exchange, he offered vague promises about future corporate events. I asked for a signed payment guarantee. He became offended. "I've never been treated this way by hotel staff." There it was. Staff. The word people use when they need you beneath them. I slid the contract toward him. "You signed this as client, not royalty." He stared at me. For half a second, I thought he might walk out. Instead, Daniel arrived, pale and apologetic. and persuaded his father to sign a revised agreement. The event could proceed, but only because I restructured the payment schedule, reduced unnecessary upgrades, and personally signed off on the risk control plan. Not paying, not gifting, not saving them with my own money, saving them with competence, the thing my family never knew how to value. That same evening, Emily called me. "Mom says you're being weird with Daniel's family. I'm doing my job." "Exactly. Could you maybe not act like staff with them?" I closed my eyes. "Emily, I am staff. Senior staff. You know what I mean." "No, tell me," she huffed. "They're important people. Please don't bring up awkward money details." I almost laughed. "Their payment details are the reason you still have a party." Silence. Then her voice went cold. "You always do this." "Do what?" "Act like you're better because you handle paperwork." I said, "Paperwork is the reason rooms get unlocked." She snapped. "Just don't ruin this for me." That was the last thing she said before the night of the party. Don't ruin this for me. As if I had not spent 2 weeks keeping it from collapsing under the weight of everyone else's lies. The evening of the engagement party, the Alderbrook looked flawless. That is the painful thing about professional work. If you do it well, nobody sees how close everything came to disaster. The ballroom glowed with warm light. White roses climbed the stage backdrop. Champagne flutes lined the welcome table. A string quartet played near the windows. The Keller name appeared on the digital welcome screen. Emily's initials and Daniel's were printed in gold on the menus. Guests walked in and gasped, exactly the way Emily wanted. My team had done beautiful work. I had done beautiful work. Then my mother asked me not to mention I worked there. I had planned to attend as a guest after handing off the event to my assistant manager, Priya. I wore a navy dress, low heels, and simple earrings. I arrived through the lobby, not the staff entrance, because for once I wanted to feel like I belonged in the room without carrying a radio. Mom intercepted me before I could reach the ballroom. "Rebecca," she said, already tense, "can we talk?" That was when she pulled me behind the marble column. "Please don't tell anyone you still work here." "Still?" I asked. She looked uncomfortable. "You know what people think. Because you told them. Because you never explained. You never believed me." Her expression hardened. "This is not the night." It never was. Not when Emily cried. Not when Dad was tired. Not when relatives were visiting. Not at holidays. Not at funerals. Not on Sundays. My truth was always scheduled for a later time that never arrived. Then Emily appeared and told me not to do the victim thing. That hurt, but it did not surprise me. What surprised me was how calm I felt afterward. Maybe because I was standing in a building where people knew exactly who I was. My mother could rewrite me in living rooms, but not here. Not under the cameras I had installed. Not in the ballroom I had saved. Not with staff who had watched me build my name one solved problem at a time. Inside the ballroom, Emily floated from guest to guest. Daniel looked handsome and nervous. His mother was polite in that wealthy way that feels like being measured. His father avoided my eyes. That told me he knew I could become inconvenient if he pretended too much. My father stood near the bar telling a group of men that Emily had always attracted the right people. I wondered if he heard himself. I wondered if he knew I was standing 12 feet away. Aunt Marjorie hugged me cautiously, like theft might be contagious. "You look well, Rebecca," she said. "Still at the hotel?" I smiled. "Yes." Her eyes widened with pity. "Well, work is work." I did not defend myself. Defending myself had become exhausting, and besides, the truth was already walking toward us in a black folder. I just did not know it yet. During cocktail hour, Priya came over quietly. "Howard Keller is arguing about the final invoice again." I kept my face pleasant. "Where?" "Small conference room. Tell him the agreement stands. He asked for you." Of course he had. I excused myself from Aunt Marjorie and went to the conference room, where Howard stood with Daniel and the banquet captain. Howard said, "This is ridiculous. We have 200 people here. You can't expect final authorization tonight." I said, "The revised contract says exactly that." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Dad, just sign it." Howard glared. "You are letting staff push you around at your own engagement party." I looked at Daniel. He looked ashamed. Then he said quietly, Rebecca is the reason we still have the party. Howard said nothing. He signed. I returned to the ballroom 5 minutes before Emily's toast. I thought the worst part was over. I was wrong. Emily's toast began beautifully. She stood beneath the floral arch with Daniel beside her, one hand resting on his arm, the other holding champagne. She thanked his parents first, then mine, then her friends. She thanked the florist, though she did not know the florist's name. She thanked the Alderbrook team for making magic happen, which was the phrase people use when they do not know who made the magic possible. Then she looked at me. The room followed her gaze. And of course, she said smiling, thank you to my big sister Rebecca for being here tonight. A few people clapped politely. I smiled because I knew cameras were pointed toward us. Emily continued, we've had our ups and downs, and I know this hotel has a complicated history for her, but I'm glad they still let her come celebrate with us. The room laughed softly. Not everyone understood. Some did. Aunt Marjorie looked down. My mother's face froze. Daniel turned toward Emily with confusion. I felt the words hit and settle. They still let her come. Not work, not lead, not save. Come. Like I was tolerated in a place where I had authority. Emily lifted her glass. Here's to second chances. That was the moment something inside me finally became quiet. Not numb, not broken. Quiet in the way a courtroom gets quiet before evidence is entered. Daniel leaned toward Emily and whispered something. She brushed him off, still smiling. My mother made a tiny cutting motion with her hand, warning me not to react. I did not. Then the ballroom doors opened. Mr. Alden stepped inside with the black folder. He was tall, silver-haired, and calm in a way that made people stop speaking before he asked them to. Behind him was Priya, looking like she was trying very hard not to enjoy the timing. Mr. Alden walked straight to me, not to Howard Keller, not to Daniel, not to Emily, to me. Rebecca, he said. I apologize for interrupting. The room quieted. Emily's smile flickered. Mr. Alden, I said, is everything okay? He held out the folder. Yes, the revised contract is complete, but because the final balance adjustment affects the regional event account, we need your signature as the authorizing operations manager. Someone near the dessert table whispered, Operations manager? Emily laughed nervously. I think there's been a mistake. Rebecca's just... Mr. Alden looked at her. Not rudely, worse, professionally. Ms. Lane is the senior operations manager for event controls at this property. The silence stretched. My mother's face lost color. My father put his glass down. Aunt Marjorie's mouth opened. Mr. Alden continued, unaware or perhaps very aware that he had walked into a family lie. And since the regional director approved announcing her promotion tonight, I also need to confirm whether she wants the formal email released Monday. Emily whispered, Promotion? Mr. Alden looked at me. May I? I could have stopped him. I know that. Part of me almost did, out of habit. Protect the room. Protect Mom. Protect Emily. Make the truth smaller so nobody has to feel embarrassed. Then I remembered Emily's toast. They still let her come. I said, Go ahead. Mr. Alden turned slightly toward the room. For those who don't know, Rebecca has led the internal controls overhaul for the Alderbrook and 2 sister properties for the past year. She recovered major account losses, rebuilt our event billing system, and is being promoted to Regional Director of Event Operations next month. Nobody moved. Then Priya started clapping. After 1 second, so did several hotel employees near the back. Then Daniel. Then others, uncertainly at first, then louder. I did not look at Emily. I looked at my mother. She looked like someone watching a locked door open from the wrong side. The applause did not last long, but the damage did. Truth has a way of ruining the mood when the mood depends on a lie. Emily stood under the floral arch, still holding her champagne, no longer the center of the room in the way she wanted. Daniel looked from Mr. Alden to me, then to his father, who suddenly found the floor fascinating. My father stepped forward. Rebecca, is this true? I almost laughed, not because anything was funny, because my boss had just said it in front of 200 people, and my father still needed me to confirm reality before he accepted it. Yes, I said. My mother whispered, Why didn't you tell us? That one hurt more than it should have. I did. Her eyes flashed. You said there might be a promotion. You said that was nice and asked about insurance. Aunt Marjorie looked at my mother. My mother looked away. Emily recovered enough to speak. Well, congratulations, she said lightly. That's wonderful. I just wish this hadn't interrupted the toast. Daniel turned to her. Emily. She looked at him. What? He spoke quietly, but everyone near the stage heard. You just implied she was barely allowed in the hotel. Her cheeks flushed. It was a joke. Was it? The room tightened again. Mr. Alden cleared his throat. Rebecca, there is one more matter. The Keller agreement needs final acknowledgement of the payment restructure. Howard Keller stepped in quickly. That can be handled privately. Mr. Alden looked at him. It was supposed to be. That sentence was elegant and lethal. Daniel's mother, Victoria, who had been silent until then, turned to her husband. Payment restructure? Howard's jaw tightened. Daniel looked ill. Emily stared at me with hatred now, not confusion. You said you wouldn't discuss money, she whispered. I didn't, I said. Mr. Alden did. You set this up. No. I prevented this party from being canceled. That line traveled. I saw it move through the crowd in small reactions, heads turning, eyes widening. Daniel took a step toward me. Rebecca, what does that mean? Howard said, Daniel, not now. Daniel did not look at him. No, now. I opened the folder. Mr. Alden did not stop me. The deposit was late. The second payment was short. Premium upgrades were requested without matching funds. The hotel was within its right to cancel portions of the event. I restructured the contract after your father signed a guarantee tonight. Daniel looked at Howard. You told me everything was paid. Victoria said, Howard. Emily's face went pale. Daniel, it doesn't matter. The party happened. Daniel stared at her. You knew? She looked cornered. I knew there were temporary issues. And you let me think your parents helped cover it? My mother inhaled sharply. Emily! Daniel looked at my mother now. You knew too? Mom's eyes filled. We didn't want stress before the engagement. I said nothing. For once, I did not need to. The room was doing its own math. Emily had joked that I was allowed to attend out of pity, while I was the person who had kept her event standing. My family had told people I was fired for stealing, while I had been promoted for fixing theft and billing problems. Howard had acted like staff was beneath him, while begging staff to protect his image. Daniel stepped back from Emily. How many lies are there tonight? Nobody answered. That was the answer. The party did not end immediately. Public humiliation rarely has a clean curtain drop. The string quartet kept playing because nobody told them to stop. Servers continued moving through the room with trays because professionals know how to carry soup through emotional collapse. Guests whispered in clusters. Some pretended to study the flowers. Others watched openly. Emily pulled Daniel toward the side of the ballroom, but he did not follow far. Howard and Victoria argued in low voices near the windows. My mother came toward me with tears in her eyes. Rebecca, why would you embarrass your sister like this? I looked at her, and something in me finally refused the old script. I didn't embarrass Emily. I stopped disappearing. Mom flinched. That's not fair. No, I said. What wasn't fair was letting people think I stole from this hotel for 2 years. She looked around quickly. Lower your voice. Why? You didn't keep the lie quiet. My father joined us then, red-faced and rigid. This is not the place. It became the place when Emily made the joke. He glanced toward the stage. She shouldn't have said that. It was the closest he had come to taking my side in years, and it still sounded like a weather report. I said, No, Dad. She shouldn't have stolen hotel vouchers 2 years ago, lied about it, let me be blamed, then used my workplace for her engagement party while acting like I was lucky to be invited. My mother gasped. Rebecca. Aunt Marjorie heard. So did Dad. So did Daniel, who had quietly returned behind them. Emily froze across the room. Daniel said, What vouchers? Emily closed her eyes. Mr. Alden, still beside me, spoke carefully. The hotel cannot disclose confidential personnel or recovery matters beyond what involved current event risk. Then he looked at Emily and his voice cooled. But I can say Rebecca was never terminated, never charged, and never found responsible for theft. She assisted the hotel in identifying unauthorized use of internal access. That was professional language for what my sister had done. Daniel understood enough. Emily? She shook her head. It was a misunderstanding. I said, 3 spa vouchers, 2 restaurant gift cards, and a weekend suite certificate were not a misunderstanding. Howard whispered something under his breath. Victoria looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Emily's voice rose. I paid it back. Daniel stared at her. You told me Rebecca was fired for stealing. Because I was scared. Of what? The truth? She started crying then. The familiar kind. Soft at first, then helpless. The kind that usually made my mother move automatically toward her. This time, my mother did move, but slowly, like she was no longer sure which daughter required rescue. Emily said, Rebecca always makes everything so official. She never just lets things go. I looked at my sister beneath the flowers I had approved, in the ballroom I had saved, surrounded by the life she tried to build out of appearances. You're right, I said. I don't let theft become personality. A few people heard that. Someone coughed. Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. I need air. Emily grabbed his sleeve. Daniel, please. He pulled away gently. I don't know what's true right now. That, more than anything, broke the performance. Emily looked around the room and realized people were no longer seeing a perfect bride-to-be. They were seeing a woman who had built a party on unpaid balances, family lies, and a sister she had been willing to bury socially to protect herself. Mr. Alden turned to me. Rebecca, do you want to step into the office? I looked at the ballroom, at my mother, at Emily, at Daniel walking out through the garden doors. Then I looked at my boss. No, I said. I'm fine right here. It was the first time all night those words were true. The final hour of the party was strange. People stayed because leaving too quickly would admit they had witnessed something serious. People also left because staying felt like participating in it. Daniel remained outside for a long time. Emily stayed in the bridal suite with Mom. Howard disappeared into a private call. Victoria approached me near the lobby with her purse held tightly in both hands. Rebecca, she said, I owe you an apology. I did not know what I expected from Daniel's mother, but it was not that. She looked embarrassed, but direct. Howard told me the hotel was being difficult. Emily told us there had been problems with your employment. I believed them because it was easier than asking why a hotel would trust you with this event if the rumors were true. That sentence mattered. Not because it fixed anything, but because someone outside my family had done the simple math my family had avoided. Thank you, I said. She nodded. I'm sorry my family added to this. I glanced toward Howard, still on the phone near the elevators. I think both families did. A small, sad smile crossed her face. Yes. After she left, Priya came over with 2 glasses of water and handed one to me. For the record, she said, that was the best promotion announcement I've ever seen. I laughed. It came out shaky. I don't think corporate planned it that way. Corporate is never that entertaining. We stood together in silence for a moment. Priya had worked under me for 3 years. She knew more about my family than I had intended because hotel staff become experts at reading what guests try to hide. She said, You know none of us believed that fired for stealing story, right? My throat tightened. I hoped. Rebecca, you reorganized our entire loss certificate system because of that mess. Half of us got trained by you on why family access is not a security policy. I smiled despite everything. Good training. Terrifying training. When the party finally ended, I signed the final event acknowledgement in Mr. Alden's office. He sat across from me, looking more concerned than managerial. I apologize for the timing, he said. I did not know your sister intended to make that toast. You didn't do anything wrong. Still, he folded his hands. The regional role is yours, Rebecca. Tonight does not change that. I looked at the folder in front of me, the promotion letter. Regional Director of Event Operations. My name printed cleanly beneath the title. For years, my family had made my work sound small. Front desk, hotel staff, still there, kept around. But here was paper that remembered better. I want it, I said. Mr. Alden smiled. Good. When I walked out of the office, my father was waiting in the lobby. He looked like he had aged during the party. His tie was loosened. His shoulders were rounded. Can we talk? He asked. I almost said no. Then I thought about the version of me who had waited years for him to ask anything real. 5 minutes, I said. We sat in 2 lobby chairs near the fireplace. The ballroom doors were closed now. Staff moved quietly inside, breaking down the event Emily had almost turned into a fairy tale. Dad stared at his hands. I didn't know about the vouchers. I said nothing. He swallowed. I should have asked. Yes. Your mother said you couldn't explain because of hotel rules. Emily was crying. I thought... He stopped. I thought what was easiest. That was the first honest thing he had said all night. I said, You thought what protected Emily. He closed his eyes. Yes. The answer hurt, but the honesty did not. He looked at me. Are you really becoming a regional director? I nodded. Next month. His eyes filled. I'm proud of you. I wanted those words to feel clean. They did not. They came covered in years of absence. Still, I let them exist. Thank you, I said. Then I stood. He did too. He looked like he wanted to hug me. I did not move closer. After a moment, he dropped his arms. Maybe that was the first boundary he ever respected. Emily called me the next morning at 7. I did not answer. Then she texted, "You destroyed my engagement party." I stared at the message while coffee brewed. For a moment, my fingers moved automatically toward an apology. Not because I believed I owed one, because my body had been trained to soothe Emily before I even checked whether she was bleeding or just angry. I put the phone face down. 10 minutes later, Daniel called. I almost did not answer him either, but something about the night before told me he deserved the truth directly. "Rebecca," he said, "I'm sorry to bother you." His voice sounded exhausted. "You're not." He took a breath. "I need to know something. Did Emily really use your access code 2 years ago?" I looked out the window at the city waking up. "Yes." "And you knew?" "I suspected." The hotel confirmed unauthorized use. She denied it at first, then the losses were repaid. He was quiet. "I helped her pay something back then. She told me she had accidentally damaged auction items and was embarrassed." I closed my eyes. Emily had layered her lies carefully. Not perfectly, but enough to survive in rooms where nobody wanted to press too hard. Daniel continued, "I asked her last night if she was the reason people thought you stole. She said you were always jealous of her." I laughed once. I could not help it. That is her favorite explanation. "Were you?" I appreciated the question more than I expected. Not because it was easy, but because he asked instead of assuming. "Sometimes," I said. "When we were younger, I was jealous that she got comfort so easily. I was jealous that people believed her tears and questioned my facts. But I was not jealous of her life. I was tired of paying for it." Daniel exhaled slowly. "That makes sense." He sounded sad. "I don't know what happens now. That's between you and Emily." "I know. I just wanted to say I'm sorry I believed the story. You were told it by people who should have known better." "Still," he said, "I should have wondered why the hotel trusted you if you had done what they said." That was exactly it. The simple question nobody in my family had asked. After we hung up, I saw 3 missed calls from Mom, 1 voicemail. I listened. Her voice was tight. "Rebecca, your sister is devastated. Daniel left last night and won't speak to her. I know things came out, but you need to understand she was under pressure. You know how she gets when she's scared. Please don't punish her forever." I deleted it before it ended. Not because I did not care, because even her voicemail was about Emily's pain. Not the lie, not the damage, not the years I had carried a stain on my name because my sister was scared. I went to work that afternoon because the hotel does not pause for family crises. A corporate check-in had gone sideways. A wedding planner wanted to move a ceremony inside because of rain. A guest in 1104 insisted the city view was emotionally disappointing. Normal problems. Solvable problems. Problems that did not ask me to shrink myself. Priya had placed a small sign on my office door. Regional Director in Training. I rolled my eyes and took it down. Then I put it in my drawer because it made me smile. Around 5, Mr. Alden stopped by. "Your mother is in the lobby," he said. My stomach sank. Of course she is. "Would you like security to ask her to leave?" That question was strangely healing. My mother had spent years entering my life as if access was a right. Here, someone asked me whether she had permission. I said, "No, I'll speak to her." Mom stood near the lobby flowers, looking smaller in daylight. When she saw me, her eyes filled. "Rebecca." I did not hug her. "You have 10 minutes. Her face tightened at the boundary, but she nodded. Progress, maybe, or shock. We sat near the same fireplace where Dad and I had spoken. Mom twisted her handbag strap. "I didn't know it was that bad." I said, "You knew people thought I stole. I didn't know Emily was responsible." "You didn't want to." Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, she did not immediately deny it. My mother looked around the lobby before answering, as if the hotel itself had become a witness against her. "Emily was crying," she said. "She said you were trying to make her look bad. She said the hotel was blaming her because of you." I waited. "And you believed her." Mom's eyes filled again. She seemed so scared. I was scared too. That stopped her. I leaned forward. "I was under investigation because my access code was used. I was moved out of my position during an audit. Relatives looked at me like I was a criminal. Dad asked if I had done something desperate. You told people there were questions about money. I was scared too, but I didn't cry in a way that made you protect me. Tears slipped down her face. Rebecca, I made mistakes. I almost accepted that because mistake is a soft word and I was tired. But I had learned something from contracts. Soft wording hides liability. No, I said. You made choices. She looked wounded. That feels harsh. So to being called a thief. She flinched. I never used that exact word. You let other people use it. She looked down. The lobby music played softly between us. A bellman rolled luggage past. Somewhere behind the front desk, a guest laughed. Life continued, rudely and beautifully, even while my mother tried to learn the shape of what she had done. Finally, she said, I am sorry I believed the worst version of you, because it was easier than questioning Emily. It was not perfect, but it was specific. Specific apologies matter. I nodded slowly. Thank you. She looked relieved too soon, so I added, that does not fix it. Her face fell. I know. I was not sure she did, but at least she said it. Then came the question I knew was waiting. Will you talk to your sister? I almost smiled. There it is. Rebecca, Mom, you came here because Emily is devastated. She is. And I was devastated for 2 years. She had no answer. I stood. Emily can contact me when she can say what she did without using fear as an excuse. Mom nodded, crying harder now. I walked her to the exit. At the door, she said, You look important here. That sentence broke my heart in a way I did not expect. Not because it was praise, because it revealed that she needed the marble lobby, the promotion, the title, and other people's respect before she could see what had always been true. I said, I was important when I worked the front desk too. She closed her eyes. You're right. She left. I went back to my office and cried for exactly 4 minutes. Then I fixed the ceremony rain plan because life does not wait for mothers to become honest. The next few weeks were quieter than I expected. Daniel postponed the wedding discussions. Emily stopped posting. Howard Keller paid the remaining balance in full after Victoria apparently informed him she would not be embarrassed twice. The hotel sent out the promotion announcement Monday morning. My phone filled with messages from colleagues, vendors, former brides, banquet staff, housekeeping supervisors, and people who had known exactly who I was long before my family did. One message from Reggie, the night security manager, made me laugh. It said, Director now? Does this mean you'll stop moving lobby plants at midnight? I replied, Never. My father sent flowers to the hotel. The card said, Proud of you. Sorry I was late to know it. I kept the card. I threw away the flowers when they wilted. Both felt right. Emily did not contact me for 36 days. When she finally did, she sent one message. Can I come talk? No audience. I stared at those 2 words. No audience. For Emily, that was almost a confession. I said yes. Emily came to my apartment on a Thursday evening, wearing jeans, no makeup, and a sweater I had given her 3 Christmases earlier. She looked smaller without performance. That did not make her harmless, but it made me remember she was human. I let her in and pointed to the chair across from the couch. She noticed the distance. Good. I'm sorry, she said. No tears yet, no trembling voice, just the words. I said nothing. She swallowed. I used your code. I let you get blamed. I told people you were fired because if they thought you were the problem, nobody would look too closely at me. My chest tightened. There it was, the actual sentence, the one I had waited 2 years to hear. Emily continued. And at the party, I said that thing because I wanted everyone to remember the old story before they noticed you were the person holding the room together. I looked at her. Why? She wiped her palms on her jeans. Because being around you at the hotel made me feel fake. That answer surprised me. You were fake. She gave a sad laugh. I know. Then she cried, but quietly. Not the old cry that asked to be rescued. This one looked like it hurt her more than it was meant to move me. I hated that people there respected you. I hated that Daniel listened when you talked about contracts. I hated that his father was scared of you. I hated that you were everything Mom said you weren't. I asked, and what was that? Emily looked at me with wet eyes. Important. For a moment, the room blurred. Not because the word fixed anything, because she had found the buried thing, the whole shape of it. I had not needed my sister to admire me. I had needed her to stop surviving by making me smaller. She said, "Daniel and I are on a break." I did not respond. He said he can't marry someone who tells lies and calls them fear. Smart man, I thought, but did not say. Emily looked at her hands. "I'm not here to ask you to fix it." Good. She nodded like she deserved that. "I'm here because Mom keeps saying we both need to move forward, and I realized I don't know how to move forward until I say out loud that you didn't do anything to me. I did it to you." I breathed in slowly. Forgiveness is hard when someone finally becomes accurate. Part of you wants to reward the truth. Part of you remembers how long the lie lived rent-free in your name. "Thank you for saying that," I said. Her face crumpled with relief. I held up one hand. "That is not the same as trust." She nodded quickly. "I know. I don't want you contacting people to explain unless you tell the whole truth." "I will. Not misunderstanding, not family tension, not we were both hurt. The truth." She nodded again. The truth. She left after 20 minutes. We did not hug. Maybe one day we would. Maybe not. Healing does not owe anyone a beautiful scene. The following month, Aunt Marjorie called me. Emily had told her. Then Aunt Carol. Then my father's sister. The story corrected itself slowly, like a crooked picture being straightened inch by inch. Some people apologized. Some avoided me, because apologies would require admitting they had enjoyed the gossip. I let them. My life grew bigger anyway. The regional role started in June. I traveled between 3 properties, rebuilt event controls, trained managers, and learned that authority feels strange at first, when you spent years being called dramatic for knowing things. On my first official day, Mr. Alden handed me a new name badge. Rebecca Lane, Regional Director of Event Operations. I held it longer than necessary, not because a title makes a person worthy, because sometimes paper helps the world catch up to what you already earned. A year after Emily's engagement party, the Alderbrook hosted another event in the same ballroom, a charity dinner. I stood near the back with Priya, watching servers move like choreography under warm lights. No family, no whispers, no one asking me to hide my work. Priya nudged me. "Still let you come here, huh?" I laughed so hard I had to cover my mouth. "My name is Rebecca Lane. I'm 32 years old. My family told everyone I was fired for stealing. My sister let that lie protect her for 2 years. Then, at her engagement party, my boss walked in with a folder and said my promotion was ready. But the promotion was not the real victory. The real victory was watching the lie lose its job. For years, my family thought silence meant guilt. They thought my professionalism meant weakness. They thought I would keep protecting the people who damaged my name because that was what good daughters and good sisters did. They were wrong. I did not shout. I did not ruin the party. I simply stopped shrinking when the truth entered the room. And when everyone finally looked at me, not as the scandal, not as the staff, not as the sister who should be grateful to be included, but as the woman who had kept the whole event standing, I realized something I wish I had known sooner. Respect that only arrives after proof is not love, but it is still useful. It shows you who needed evidence before they could see you, and it teaches you to stop begging those people to look.